What's up, everybody? Forge Your Path, episode number 4 coming at you today here. We're middle of January. Got the tree for probably one more day till it's time to close out Christmas. But just wanted to come at you with some leadership lessons today that I think are amazing from one of the most incredible people to walk the face of the earth. So today is Monday, January 16th, and today's the day honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his legacy. And has there ever been a more incredible leader than this man? I don't know. His impact on this country and on this world is second to none, in my opinion. And I took a little time to reflect and do some research. For those of you who don't know, I was a history teacher for 15 years. And I had the privilege for 8 of my years to teach 8th grade. And I got to learn a great deal about the civil rights movement and to share some of those lessons with my students. And as I went back this weekend and looked through some of the different pieces I'd learned about his impact, his legacy, I just thought it was a wonderful opportunity to share. There are so many lessons from Dr. King's life, but 3 stood out for me as I think about leadership. I think about his message, his ability to impact and inspire, that I just wanted to share today. So this will be a brief one. And I know that there are so many people out there that can do Dr. King justice. And so many famous people, I'm sure, are speaking about him today or this month. And this is simply just my impact in terms of 3 pieces that I think resonated with me personally that I was inspired to share today. So number one, faith is the fertilizer. Any great leader has the ability to see something and have a vision of what might come before it actually happens. It's so easy to think about any accomplishment and feel confident when you're 75% of the way to the goal, 90% of the way to the goal, 95% there. But how hard is it when you don't see that progress happening? When you're at step 0 or step 1 of a 1,000-step journey? I think it's incredibly difficult. And one of his amazing pieces of what he was able to accomplish was to create faith and to create inspiration in those who had no reason to have it. African Americans had seen 50 plus years of Jim Crow laws across the South, of not just a lack of progress, but regression, of a country that saw no hope for a better future in cities across America. So why would they think anything different when there was no logical reason to do so? That was part of Dr. King's impact. As he spoke in Montgomery in 1955, as he became that face of the Montgomery bus boycott over that 381-day span, he was that person that was able to inspire others to have faith, to be able to see something that was possible when there was very little logical reason to do so. And as faith grew, buy-in grew, collaboration grew, effort grew, and the incredible effort of the entire Montgomery community, of thousands of citizens who decided to walk to work, to take bicycles to work, to, for the people of the few that did have cars, to donate their vehicles and to do different services, to provide people the opportunity to get to and from work every day that might have taken a couple hours every single day, not just for a week, not just for a month, but for 381 days. That's the ability to inspire faith. And with that incredible victory, 381 days later, yeah, I keep saying that because, again, 381 days is an extraordinary amount of time. That provided a groundbreaking win and a foundation for the remainder of the civil rights movement. That if desegregating the buses in Montgomery was possible, what else can be possible? So I think any great leader has this ability to inspire faith. And as I think about his famous quotes, he's got many of them. I love his quote on faith. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. And how true is that? So, number one, faith is the fertilizer. And thank you, Dr. King, for inspiring faith in not just thousands of people in Montgomery, but millions during your era and billions over the course of the last 58 years since that groundbreaking effort in 1955. So that's leadership lesson number one. Number two, perseverance is the key to progress. Perseverance is the key to progress. I think for a lot of people who don't study or haven't studied the civil rights movement, they think that after this groundbreaking victory in 1955, change just swept through the nation. It was easy, it was simple. All of a sudden, everybody like clockwork got on board. Legal changes followed. America as a culture changed, and segregation was wiped away. That was completely not the case. Completely not the case. And as a matter of fact, the next several years were painstakingly slow. Yes, there were groundbreaking victories, city by city. You have the 1957 integration of the Little Rock schools following the 1955 legal decision of Brown versus Board of Education. But even that took 2 years before a signature city was able to integrate its public school system. And you have in 1960, you have the Greensboro sit-ins, where nonviolent protests from college students and the famous Greensboro Four sitting at lunch counters to try to challenge the Woolworth's rule of segregated lunch counters. And that was a great inspirational victory. You have the Freedom Rides in 1961 that was challenging interstate busing laws across the country. But again, you get to 1963 and Dr. King had helped to inspire other cities and other local leaders to take action across the country. But it was 8 years later. And he writes his letter from Birmingham jail 8 years later. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of impatience at the rate of change that's happening. So I think a lesser leader probably would have given up, would have just succumbed to just the exhaustion, the frustration of all the adversity he had to overcome. Countless death threats, 20 arrests over the course of his lifetime for, again, nonviolent protests and civil disobedience, financial challenges, you name it, he faced it. So perseverance is an incredible key to progress, and his incredible strength to be able to endure unimaginable hardship over the course of this time, to be the face of the civil rights movement, and all of that pressure that must have required is just absolutely mind-blowing to think about. And I'm sure there were several moments where he probably wanted to give up or felt down or frustrated or defeated. But obviously, when you see his legacy and what ultimately came from his enduring efforts, perseverance is clearly the key to progress. And in looking at my favorite quote of his on perseverance, it really says it all. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, keep moving. Phenomenal quote. So leadership lesson number 3, great leaders stand for ideals. Great leaders stand for ideals. So throughout the course of Dr. King's time as a civil rights leader, countless times he was told all kinds of messages that spoke of essentially a lesser vision, of maybe a second-rate form of compromise. It's not that he didn't negotiate or discuss or listen to ideas from others, but several local leaders and different councils or organizations or white leadership would tell him things like, be patient. This is going to take a lot of time. They challenge him to compromise and perhaps accept maybe lesser components. Well, we'll desegregate the buses, but the whole city, we're not really quite ready for that yet. Or the buses are okay, but maybe not the schools. So he constantly was given these opportunities where he could have accepted a lesser vision. And really, there was plenty of apathy and just inaction across the United States, even 8 years later. And it wasn't until the Children's March in 1963, which really was not engineered by Dr. King himself. It was Ralph Abernathy and other local leaders who helped to push this forward, where the sickening outcomes of all the efforts that Police Chief Bull Connor used to try to suppress the Children's March, turning fire hoses on children and citizens, just revolting options. Only then, when those footages came on television, did it really get the attention of President John F. Kennedy, who also encouraged the city to compromise and encouraged local leaders to stop because he was worried about the prospect of violence. But again, Dr. King did not compromise in this situation. He was not going to accept a lesser vision. He helped make sure that that firm conviction of not a half-baked compromise decades out, but real change in the near future was going to take place. And months later, in his famous I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial, perfectly symbolic, in 1963, 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the purity of his vision is so beautifully captured in his quote. We will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. And again, what can you say except just have incredible awe and reverence for a leader that has that purity of vision to know what the true outcome requires, and what the subsequent efforts of the changes that took place with the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act that occurred in 1964 and 1965. There finally was that legal foundation and the delivery, the legal delivery of a promise that had really been unfulfilled over the course of the last century, and that set the foundation for the future. And of course, Dr. King's life was tragically cut short when he was assassinated in 1968, and he did not get the opportunity to see the full legacy of his vision. Today, as we stand here 58 years later, thinking about his legacy, it really is tremendous to think, of course, where our country has come, but of course that the ongoing work does continue and must continue. But his leadership lessons, to me, resonate as strongly as they were in the 1950s and 60s as required today. Our country, our nation needs leadership. And to me, on this day of remembrance, on this day of service, this national holiday, I just want to say thank you, Dr. King, for reminding us what true leadership looks like. Now, it's been an honor to share this lesson today. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And on today, just wanted to again have that opportunity to say thank you to Dr. King for the nation he helped to create, that we all have the honor and privilege to live in today. Thank you, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it on social media. Also, if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs, please see the show notes for the link to my website. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.